This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Okay, March, enough lying. How about some lamb? And which cities could be high and dry? Also, that's a whole lot of escargot. That and more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Okay, Mother Nature, you win. It's now officially spring, and it's also Ag Week. So can we get some actual spring weather so we can do some agging? This time last year, you guys had tilled, treated, and were basically at the edge of your fields waiting to plant. This year, the soil temp is about right to keep my canned beverages chilled. But despite the temperature, I'm ready to talk some farming. So I gave a call to a friend of the program, Todd Easton, to pick his brain. And joining us now is our good friend Todd Easton from Terrydale Farms. And Todd, among his many, many skills, is a crop watcher for Farm Week, and he keeps an eye on the area for us. So, Todd, let's just go ahead and recap. Last year was a year you probably don't want to live through again, right?
I would rather not, if I had a choice.
So you're like everybody else. Your corn was good, but your corn was but your beans saved the day.
Yeah, the beans were much better. They ended up making, for us, 10 bushel off of our average, which was really good. It was late rains that saved us, and it was a lot nicer going through those.
Yeah, so thank goodness for Isaac.
Yeah, thank goodness for Isaac. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to forget about last year and we're concentrating on this year. How's the spring been setting up for you?
This March has certainly been different. This time last year we were in the field. Some corn had been planted, and it was a very dry and warm March and allowed some field work to get done. This year's quite different. It's staying very cold, which is making my spring fever get worse.
Oh, tell me about it.
But honestly, anything that's different than last year can't all be bad,
So you haven't done the field work, the field prep, that sort of thing. So you're just standing around twiddling your thumbs?
No. It was kind of a slow winter. We didn't have much grain to haul, unfortunately. Yeah. So we kept busy in the shop, and right now we're getting things ready, and I'm getting ready, but it is a bit of a slower pace. There's just not as much to do. Haven't called Old Harold back yet. So.
Okay. So what are you thinking of is your timeline for this spring planting?
Well, I'm hoping maybe the first part of April.
Okay.
It's hard to tell when it breaks. It breaks.
When it breaks and it dries.
You got to be ready to go when.
So what's the soil temp in your area?
No, I haven't looked at that for a little while. I think it's still running down in the 40s.
Right.
Last I checked, and that might have been a couple weeks ago. So.
Okay, so the ground's not ready. It's still wet,
absolutely not.
And you are chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think you're going to be planting this year?
I'm expecting a good year.
Okay.
All right. I'm calling it Lucky 13.
Okay.
In the Crop Watcher article. So,
okay.
It's going to be, every year's different,
right.
And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But I think we're going to have a good year, and the weather pattern has changed. Fortunately, the jet stream's more in our favor.
Right.
So
you're planning. You're probably going to go corn and beans in the normal ration, or?
I've went back to more of a 50-50 on the corn and the beans, and in the middle of that I have 200 and some acres of wheat.
I was going to say, I drive by your wheat field all the time, and it's odd to see something green this time of year.
Yeah, it's going through the winter pretty well. This winter hasn't affected it too badly. We put the nitrogen on last month, and it's looking really good. The seed agronomist was pretty happy with it and said we could expect an early harvest, which would be early June for it, which would be great because we'll follow up with a soybean crop, hopefully.
Yeah, let's cross our fingers.
Cross our fingers.
Okay,
yes,
well,
sir.
Thank you, Todd Easton from Terrydale Farms. Thank you, and good luck, and we'll be talking to you when you're done with your planting, okay?
I look forward to it.
Thank you. Here with news of someone who might want the stuff in your barn is Monica Becker. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. This week was Ag Week, a week designed to recognize and celebrate the abundance provided by agriculture. And if you haven't hugged a farmer this week yet, you might want to find one ASAP. One organization that is giving American agriculture a big collective hug is the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. The museum announced the opening of a web portal to help people share stories, photographs, and materials about innovations that changed the world of agriculture. The museum also announced that it has accepted items donated by farmers in Illinois, Tennessee, and California for a new agricultural archive. The materials gathered will be assembled and displayed in a new exhibit called American Enterprise, opening in 2015. Illinois agriculture leaders want to give a big hug back to Washington, or maybe a firm handshake. This week, several agricultural groups headed to the nation's capital to discuss key issues with legislators and regulators. The Illinois Corn Growers Association had up to 9 teams circling Washington, D.C., focusing on the Farm Bill, crop insurance, sustainability, and other issues while meeting with the USDA, EPA, the Ag Committee staff, embassies, and even environmental groups. The Illinois Farm Bureau and the Illinois soybean farmers were also making their rounds. The news is that something actually got accomplished. Both the Illinois Corn Growers Association and the Illinois soybean farmers announced that major legislation on improving the Mississippi River was introduced by Illinois representatives. U.S. Senator Dick Durbin and U.S. Representatives Bill Enyart, Rodney Davis, and Cheri Bustos submitted a couple of bills: the Water Infrastructure Now Public-Private Partnership Act and the Mississippi River Navigation Sustainment Act. The bills would create public-private partnership for lock and dam modernization along the Mississippi and Illinois rivers and help the Army Corps of Engineers more quickly identify and clear important navigation channels for commercial traffic. And while we're talking about water, the Illinois State Water Survey recently published a study of water supplies of cities in the East Central Illinois area and the potential for water shortages. The good news, those cities and towns that depend on groundwater from the Mahomet Aquifer are in good shape. None of the city areas like Champaign or Danville are considered at risk of future water shortages in case of a prolonged drought. The bad news, the areas that depend on surface water may be at risk. The areas around Springfield are considered the most at risk, while Bloomington and Decatur are slightly less so. The full report can be found on the Illinois State Water Survey website. There's an unusual type of farming going on in a small Texas town. They're using fish to help grow produce. Brendalis Gonzalez has the story from Monday, Texas.
Every time one of these tilapia fish takes a bite, it's one step closer to producing a juicy tomato or crisp lettuce.
If I was to take this tomato plant and grow it outside, it would take 10 times as much water.
Within these tanks swim 11,000 fish, producing enough waste to create the perfect balance to serve as soil for H&R Organic Farms. All of the water for the plants comes from the fish tanks. It's just enough for the roots to get the nourishment they need to grow.
Our goal here is to not have to spray anything. It's all natural.
This is the final product. There are no chemicals or pesticides needed here. You can literally pick a tomato like this one right off the vine, take a bite, and it'll last up to 2 weeks.
There are tomatoes, lettuce, and even strawberries inside this 11,000 square foot greenhouse. Glenn Herring owns the land where he farms wheat and cotton, but this is a whole new ballgame.
We looked around and didn't see anybody growing any produce anymore in the area.
But that's part of what intrigued him to join Nathan Rowland and his brother to create the first aquaponic farm in West Texas. Anyone can stop by and purchase produce grown at the farm at prices that compete with what you'd find at a local grocery store.
In the big cities, you'll find organic stores, they double the price on things. Because we're in a small town, people aren't going to spend that kind of money.
The only difference may be the taste.
The tomatoes that you buy in the store taste like cardboard, and the tomatoes that you take the vine ripen off these plants are very sweet and very delicious.
It's a new way of farming without the need for anything other than nature. There's nothing fishy about it.
And from good fish to not so good, getting rid of the Asian carp just got tougher. A newly released study says Asian carp may be reproducing in more places and for longer periods than previously thought. Several varieties of Asian carp have infested the Mississippi River and many of the tributaries and are often outcompeting native species for food. A new Purdue study says that the aggressive fish are spawning in waters that had been considered too narrow or with currents too slow for their offspring to survive. So major rivers and small tributaries. What's next? Carp and tunnel? That's all for this week. Thanks for watching. I'm Monica Becker.
And with us now is Kathy Hummel. She's a master gardener in Coles County. And, you know, spring has sprung, and I am anxious to get winter behind us and,
Oh, me too.
and
Yes.
get spring going. And one of the things that happens in spring is people put in gardens. And true. So, Kathy, if I was new to gardening, and not to suggest I am, how would somebody get started in planting a garden?
Okay, say you wanted to start a vegetable garden,
Okay.
and my first advice would be to start small.
Okay. Don't go with the 40 by 40
That's
patch.
right, that's
Okay.
right, because then you'll feel guilty when it gets all weedy, and it's if it had another summer like last summer, you'll feel guilty when you aren't watering it. So start small. Over at the home planting places,
Yeah.
they have raised beds already made up for you. You just put the corners on and
So
start
what are
away.
raised beds?
Raised beds are, I think they're probably about 8 to 12 inches tall,
Okay.
lumber in a rectangle shape. And just if you want to pay that money, you go ahead and do
So,
that. And
you
it's-
can make an 8 by 8 or a 4 by 4
Right.
square garden.
You mentioned the size. Make sure it's not more than you can reach
Oh, okay.
halfway in.
Okay.
So if you have a 2-foot reach, don't make it more than 4 feet.
Or
okay.
you need one of those hand extensions.
Right, right.
Okay. So a raised garden, why not just till up some of the yard?
Okay, raised gardens are so easy because you can start with just putting down like 2 inches, 1 inch of newspaper, not the colored sections.
Okay. Just
Put
regular
it
newsprint.
right over the grass.
Okay.
Or weeds, whatever you have. And just put it down, fill up the raised bed, and then that'll smother all the weeds. You don't need to till it up.
So you don't need to buy that fancy black material, the weed guard.
No.
Newspaper
no,
will do?
Newspaper's better.
Really?
Actually, wet it down so it won't blow all over before you get it done. But the newspapers is the best, and it'll decompose into good soil
Okay.
eventually.
So-
then on top of that, you get some bagged good soil.
Okay. So you buy the
Right.
you buy planting soil,
Right.
garden soil, potting soil. There's so many options.
Right. I'd say garden soil, and make sure it isn't, some of it, the less expensive stuff is pretty heavy stuff.
Okay. So it
So you
doesn't have
want
good
it-
pore
yeah.
structure.
Right, right.
Okay.
But you don't want it too light because then that means a lot of watering for you.
Okay.
Right.
So,
So
okay.
just right, like Goldilocks would say.
You know it when you know it.
Ask the people at the home
Okay.
store.
So we have a raised bed garden now.
Right,
Newspapers on the bottom.
Right.
Good soil on top.
right.
What do I do then?
Okay, then Paula Enstrom of the Master Gardener is a real whiz on square foot gardening, which means a very efficient use of your space.
Okay.
And so if you get online and put in square foot gardening, you'll have it.
Okay.
And it'll tell you, like, you can plant 16 radishes in this square foot and maybe 4 tomato plants in this
Oh,
square foot.
okay.
So
So you section off your garden into
Right.
square
Square
foot.
feet, right.
And you use different squares to grow different vegetables.
Right,
or
and you
different
can do
crops.
succession planting too. Like after the radishes come up, then you might plant tomato plants there.
Okay.
And read online, there's lots and lots about it, and it's a very efficient use. Also, Paula emphasizes using trellises. Like if you want to plant peas, they love to grow up. and tomatoes can be put on trellises too.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you can not only use the square foot down low, but
Right,
just raise it up and
exactly.
you can have more real estate.
Right,
Okay.
exactly, you got it.
Is it important where I put the garden in the yard?
Lots of sun. All the vegetables that you're going to grow like sun.
Okay.
So 6 hours a day at least,
6 hours a day of direct sun?
direct sun, right?
Okay. Does that affect how much water I need to worry about?
Oh, that's another point. I'm glad you're bringing up good points.
Well, I wanna be a gardener.
Right. Make sure you have a water source close by.
Okay.
You don't want to be lugging 5-gallon buckets of water 500 feet.
Well,
so if you can, or
unless it's your employee fitness program, no.
Right. So have a good water source close
So
by.
good water source, direct sun, don't overplant. Now, is there a magic formula as to what to plant when?
Yes, there is. There's some early growing plants, like cold weather plants, like broccoli likes cold weather. Radishes can take lettuce, early plants. But if you plant tomatoes too early, they aren't going to grow on you.
Okay.
So,
There's no benefit to getting in early.
No,
You're not
no.
going to beat the rush.
that's right. In fact, it'll probably stunt their growth if you
Okay.
put them in too early.
Okay.
Some people like, oh, I'm going to have the first tomatoes in the block.
Okay.
No, doesn't work that way.
Is there a produce that is extremely difficult to grow?
Oh, probably like cauliflower would be kind of iffy. If you just stick with the basics, they'll be good. Brussels sprouts are good in late fall.
Now, who likes Brussels sprouts?
Oh, I love them.
Oh, okay.
Plant some for me.
Okay. So you can plant out. Now, it sounds to me like there's going to be a lot of seeds. I'm going to need lots of different types of seeds. Is seed expensive?
No, it isn't. But for a beginning gardener, I would start with plants.
Okay.
Go
So
get some good looking plants. Have the people at the garden center help you pick out good ones.
okay. So
Yeah.
getting them germinate from
That's
seed
more
is tricky.
intermediate. Yeah.
Okay. So if
And you would be starting them now indoors. So.
Okay. So if you did want to go from seeds, you start them indoors in small planters. And
Right, and you have to have lights and everything. It just gets complicated.
Yeah.
That's for advanced
Life
or
is complicated
intermediate.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Kathy, this sounds like it's very doable and it's good outside exercise and fun and is there? Oh, go ahead.
I got some. If you decide to plant corn for the raccoons,
Oh.
then tall plants you want to put on the north side so they won't shade the other plants from the sun.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now,
Or trellises go on the north side too.
So if I were to become a corn farmer,
The raccoons will love you.
well, we'll talk about those raccoons a little bit later on. But, Kathy, this sounds like a lot of fun. I just might make the dive this year and
All
try
right,
gardening.
hope you do.
Okay, well,
get
thank
the
you.
kids involved and get that new granddaughter involved.
Well, she would play in the dirt just fine.
Yeah,
So.
and kids, if you have picky eaters,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. If they don't like broccoli, if they plant it, they'll eat it.
Yeah, well, there
Yeah.
you go.
And look on the website.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
we've had the website up during periodically here.
Right.
A
Great
lot of
information.
information if you want more information.
Right.
Okay, well, Kathy, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable. Hope your garden turns out beautifully.
You and me both. With all the talk about the Illinois and Mississippi rivers staying navigable, just what are the prospects for farmers to get their grains to market? Chris Langen and Cameron Craig looked into the question on this week's On the Map.
This week on the Map, what we're going to talk about first is the drought and the transportation issues. Now, across the United States, the Great Plains is still suffering from the drought situation, exceptional drought situation, especially in the interior of the Great Plains. Now, Chris, you did some work with exports and transportation. How will this particular drought affect transportation routes for grains?
Well, I think this last year we already saw how it affected with the very low levels of the Mississippi River. And it really is something that scientists are looking at with respect to how will future climate and the potential impacts of future climate change have on our ability to transport these large amounts of grain great distances.
Okay, so and about the future?
Really with the future, you know, the future we need to kind of look back at the past, and this map right here from 1985 really shows how important the Mississippi River corridor is for getting a lot of what we grow here in the United States out. About 60% of our country's grain goes down that river and out of New Orleans.
Okay, so with a drought situation, a normal situation, that river dwindles in height.
Exactly, and we've seen that. You know, the new normal seems to be either a flood or a drought. You know, normal really isn't normal anymore. So a lot of people, especially those involved with marketing and trying to export these large quantities of grain that our country's been very good at doing for a long time, they're looking at some alternative ways to get grain to where it needs to go, other than river transport.
And what are those ways?
A lot of those ways right now are going back and dealing with train transportation. You know, this map right here shows how much new corn and soybean acres have been put in since the year 1987. Most of those acres are going in on the western fringe of the Corn Belt, soybean belt region, and a lot of those are now being shipped directly to the West Coast for export to one of the largest and continually growing regions of export, that being the Asian countries.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting. So, so rail is the better way to go.
You know, a lot of it still comes down to price. You know, you can still ship a lot more on a barge than you can in a train car. But yeah, it's coming back into play now where they're becoming much more competitive than they've been in the past, especially with the reliability of rail.
Okay.
You know, so what we see across much of the Midwest now, not a lot, but there's a handful of examples of these huge investments being made in storage facilities that can store, you know, 2 to 3 or 4, 5 million bushels of grain at a time. They load them onto a train, 110 cars long, ship them out to port. It's done.
Okay, and you've got this diagram here, a half mile,
yeah,
the loop.
You need that loop to get that train on there, so it's 110 cars long. Takes time, takes people, takes money to unhitch cars. This way the train can just come in, every car gets loaded and off it goes.
Okay, so less than 100, it's not going to happen.
You know, 100's kind of just the number that the rail industry uses when they put their cars together.
And then, so what about new ports?
New ports, well, this is the example. This is the newest port that's been built in the United States out in Longview, Washington, directly tied to these huge grain terminals that we see now in the Dakotas. And yeah, this is the newest one. It's the newest grain port in the U.S. in the last 25, 30 years. So anytime something like this gets built, you know that it's because of some long-term outlook as to how things might change.
Okay, so with a drought situation, the waterways are dwindling because of the redistribution of precipitation. So our future use of barges will diminish while the rail increases. Any other ways to get?
You know, rail and river barge are the two most important ways that we can ship large quantities. Obviously, once it gets to the ports, it gets loaded on large ships. But it's getting from wherever that farmer is bringing his grain, from that elevator, from that large grain terminal, getting it from there onto some large-scale export type of transportation, rail or barge, and then getting it to those ports. So, you know, in our lifetime, I don't think we're going to see a huge decline in the percentage of grain being shipped out of New Orleans, but I think there will be a slight redistribution of where even Illinois grain ends up going to.
All right, well, that's food for thought. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
What's happening around the area? Jessica Killow is here with this week's Inside Extension.
Hi, I'm Jessica Killow with your Inside Extension. The Shelby County Health Expo will be held next Wednesday, March 27th from 9 to 11 a.m. at the Shelby Christian Church. The Health Expo is open to the general public, so come by and learn all about healthy living. Coles County 4-H will be hosting our annual Pork Chop Barbecue at the 4-H Center on the fairgrounds on Saturday, April 13th from 11:30 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. Tickets are on sale now. Stop by at the Extension office or contact a local 4-H member to get your tickets. Come by to see us and enjoy a fantastic meal. The program You and Your Small Child has been canceled due to low registration. We will try the program again in the fall, so keep checking our website and Facebook page for updates. Our youth educator, Dana Holman, has been in Shelbyville at Moulton Middle School working with 5th graders for the Health Jam. Health Jam is a research-based program that helps youth learn to lead healthy, active lives. The 5th graders will participate in an 8-week Walk Across Illinois, where the goal is to complete 60 minutes of daily physical activity. At the end of the 8 weeks, each team will have walked the 896 miles from northern to southern Illinois and back. The event concludes with a day on health education, including engaging youth in creative exercise activities, study of body systems, exploration of health careers, and an assessment of personal eating habits. And as always, to receive updates on programs and more information, like us on Facebook and check the website. From U of I Extension serving Coles, Cumberland, Moultrie, Douglas, and Shelby counties, this has been Jessica Killo with Inside Extension.
So what's big, slimy, and says, "Hello, mate"? Well, for the sake of this story, it's the giant African snail, and it's been found in Australia for the first time. The bug, no, I think it's a gastropod, was found creeping across a shipping container in the port of Brisbane. What's the big deal, you might ask? Well, the giant African snail has an insatiable appetite for plants like cocoa and papaya and can lay up to 1,200 eggs a year. And that could devastate an Australian agriculture crop that doesn't need any more devastation. The shipping container was carefully inspected and declared clean, and the snail was permanently removed from this mortal coil. You could say the snail was ex-cargo. So work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunset. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.